So it's all to play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hi villains, and welcome again to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast with another post-match rant review, whatever you want to call it, in lieu of the Spurs game yesterday. As you can see on the screen, Paddy is here with me again, and we're just going to get straight into it. Paddy, talk to me, tell me what your feelings are some few hours removed from that Spurs game, or that the Spurs debacle, I suppose, really.
Yeah. It's probably a good job we waited a few hours, because I was I was pretty I was just annoyed last night. Just couldn't get my head around it at all. So it's nice to have the little bit of time to have a bit more of a measured approach, because I figured I would have been ranting and raving last night if we were recorded, and we've done enough of that now. I think we just need to take a bit of time and oversee everything that's happened and look at the mitigating factors, and hopefully deliver something that will be a lot more relevant than shouting and roaring at 11 or 12 o'clock on a Sunday night.
Yeah, I didn't have the energy to do it last night. I was on a Villa View all right last night, and I suppose, a bit for full disclosure, there was some things I said there that were really heated moments. If there weren't bad things or anything like that, but I hate singling out players. I hate pointing the finger at them. I know everybody's going to say, yeah, well, you do it with Anwar El Ghazi an awful lot. I suppose that's a body of evidence, I suppose, really, that I'm trying to bring to the table with that. But I think with there was a lot of flaws in the way the team played and that the way the team were set up. I'm going to be very, very forceful in that. I think the team were set up okay last night. I think there was a few flaws with the way the team played. And look, Højbjerg took us to task yesterday. He was absolutely fantastic. What a midfielder. He's the type of midfielder we need to come in to make this midfield tick, I think now. But there's a few talking points, I think, from that game, Paddy.
I'm just going to go back to a talking point we had in the preview, where you kind of went, "Who's going to overrun us, Paddy?"
Yeah,
and I went, and it was Højbjerg and it was Mora, and I didn't see either of them coming, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, and Højbjerg was, I would have signed Højbjerg in a hot second, during the summer. I actually think I might have said it on a podcast previously. I think I definitely said it on Twitter that I thought Højbjerg was an absolute steal for 18 million for what he does and what he did for Southampton as well. And he's come in and he's hit the ground running for Spurs. And yeah, Spurs are having a bit of a down year this year, but Højbjerg has definitely been their best signing and probably their best player this year as well. He protects the back four. He gets the transitions correctly in midfield. He's just a bigger bodied guy. He can cover decent ground. So he seems to do everything, and he showed it there last night, because he really did nullify an awful lot of stuff. We couldn't go straight down the middle with him there. He was just too much of a presence. And, bar trying to kick the ball over him in a long ball tactic, we couldn't attack directly on Spurs last night. And I'm going to go back and say we couldn't do it with, this has been a kind of an ongoing piece probably since Burnley, whereby we've been crossing the ball since after Burnley, should I say. We've been just crossing the ball exponentially. I don't have any statistics to prove this, but I think we've been crossing the ball exponentially more than we have been doing previously. And, it seems to be a situation whereby we're not getting any penetration down the middle. What do you think on that, Paddy? Is that something you've seen as well?
Yeah, the crossing thing has really got to me in the last few weeks, because to me it's kind of aimless, because you've got two central defenders at Marshall and Ollie Watkins, because he's the only one in there. Especially early on in the game, it's one thing late in the game when you're throwing everybody at it and the centre halves are in there and you're pumping balls into the box. But when you're putting high balls in, I think last night was crying out for, and we had a couple of occasions where we could have done it. It's just to drill the ball in low and hard in behind the back four, and we just don't do it enough. You know, I think Jack gives us the option to get to the byline and pull balls back, and that's something that nobody else seems to be doing, with the exception of Bertie from time to time. I don't think anybody else is capable of doing it. I think that's, you know, what we have in our armory with Jack to open things up, because he's dragged two players to the end line. He's either played it to Matty Target, who's got a ball into someone on the edge of the box, or whatever. And that's how we open teams up, and that's why they double up on Jack. And when they double up on Jack, there's a bit more room to penetrate to the middle, which Ross Barkley exploited earlier in the season. So he hasn't done that when he's been there. You know, he's been relatively quiet because he can't get on the ball because there's not enough space. That's how I see it. But going back to the crossing thing, it's got to me in the last few weeks. Was it the Burnley game that started?
I think it was the Sheffield United game where we couldn't do anything.
Yeah, we had 38 crosses or something into, and it was just they were just batting them away. They were just dealing with everything, you know. So, you know, we're back to square one, I think, at the moment. And I suppose the question is, will we have Jack back the next day to change things, or is he going to have to look at other options? You know, he could have Wesley back the next day. That could mean Watkins plays down the right. I thought Bertie was very off the pace yesterday. It looked like he was feeling the effects of what happened the week before, and I thought he struggled to get into it. Same could be said for others who didn't have an injury. I thought the midfield were poor enough. I thought Sanson did okay, but I thought Louise and McGinn were poor. Yeah. And, you know, we were playing a team for the first 20 minutes that looked absolutely out on their feet. You know, I said at one stage, 15 or 20 minutes in, we're going to win here tonight, because I thought the two fullbacks were just literally dragging their feet like as if they were walking with lead in their shoes. Like, that's the way it seemed. And we just never exploited it. We just never got at them. And part of that is because of the hard work that Højbjerg and Ndombele put in front, you know, protecting that back four. So, you know, hats off to Jose is the master of defensive-minded teams, and they did a job on us last night. I think the first goal killed us. You know, I think it was always going to take a mistake to give away a goal, and as it turned out, there were two mistakes. Albeit we'll get to the penalty later on, but the first one is just an awful pity. I felt sorry for Martinez that if it's going to come back to him as well, because you know, he's been absolutely immense for us. But you know, if the defense is doing his job properly, he doesn't have to come for that one either. But anyway, there you go.
Let's talk about that first goal, because I thought that we were actually pretty comfortable up until that first goal. I didn't really buy into a lot of the sentiment was that we weren't performing even at that stage. I thought we were doing okay. I thought we looked like we had a bit of belief in the team. Yeah. Sanson, as you mentioned, was getting on the ball, gave away a couple of balls or whatever. We were giving away a lot of frees even still at that stage. But then again, that's Mike Dean. The consistently inconsistent Mike Dean. But I thought that we were getting on the end of balls. Like, Target had a good chance at the back post. I still don't know what. Like, that really is a left back coming in there, not really sure what to do in that instance. Yeah. But frustrating part was
just caught in two minds, really, wasn't it? He was, will I shoot? Will I cross it? Will I shoot? Will I cross it? And then had to make a late decision. You'd kind of hope that he'd have a go at it anyway. He got a clear-sided goal, but it just didn't fall for him.
Exactly. It's so, like, I thought we were doing okay. I thought our back four were doing really well. I thought Matty Cash, even at that stage, looked back to himself. He was getting on overlaps and stuff like that. First goal goes in, obviously, as we mentioned, Martinez comes out and it was just a poor clearance. Like, but they still need to do a small bit of work afterwards. I think it's I'm not in the blame Mings or blame Kanza brigade for that one. There was bits and pieces they could have done better, but like, it's split section reaction kind of stuff. You know?
And if you look at it closely, like, at that stage when a guy is getting in towards the 6-yard box, you've got to go and put out the fire. That's what you're taught to do, you know. So the two of them went to put out the fire, and the ball literally gets through the two of them if it had gone anywhere else along the ground, they'd have blocked it. So it was majorly unlucky, and just so happens that there's two lads standing there in the 6-yard box.
And for me, one of the sore points was what a celebration from Vinicius afterwards, or whatever his name is. Jesus Christ! I know it was his first goal in the Premier League. Fair play to him, but my God, when you roll it in,
it's terrible.
Yards, yeah, it's he
They're
didn't do
talking about him scoring.
Game.
Oh, he got 10 goals. It's against 2. His first Premier League goal of the season. He's awful. The guy wouldn't go anywhere near our team, in my opinion. But then he goes and punishes you like that. What can you do?
Absolutely.
In fairness, anyone would have put that one away.
Yeah. I fancy myself even that one. But as we saw against Wolves, maybe not anyone would have put it away, because wasn't it Kanza missed one from around that distance, and Roman Sykes missed one from
Miguel Antonio did it yesterday as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's maybe it's harder than it looks. But that goal was a real ball breaker, I think, for Villa. We never you could see the belief in the team kind of sapped away after that. We couldn't get anything really going, bar long balls and try and kick and chase. There was a lot of box kicks, as I would call them, like a scrum half out the back of a ruck, in a rugby match, up and under stuff and kick it up into the air and get Phillips to chase it. Which mentioned midfield is a bit of a problem area at the moment, but it must be difficult with that, trying to get set and while also trying to get up there to try and provide assistance to Ollie Watkins there as well. But that goal, you could see it. That's the first time I've seen this, I think, this year, that when Villa conceded first, that we really did look like we kind of felt the writing was on the wall. I spoke as well yesterday about leadership in midfield, leadership in basically outside of our back five, including Emi Martinez. I think there needs to be a bit of investment in leadership up there, especially when Jack Grealish is out. There isn't enough snarling and growling for me in there. We have a lot of players who put their head down and do their work. What it seems in the outside looking in. It's always said Mings is the one doing the talking from the back. Emi Martinez is a leader. Ezri Konsa has been known to scold people when they don't do their assignments correctly. We don't seem to see it in midfield. We need a bit more nastiness, a bit more of a destroyer type, I think, in there. And I think that will make things tick a small bit more. But Louise and McGinn last night, I thought were not their normal selves. Even going back to the start of the season, I thought positionally they were. They looked unsure of themselves positionally, and I can't quite put my finger as to why, because as we mentioned, a lot of their play was coming from deep, and it wasn't as if there was maybe you could look at Harry Kane dropping back. Maybe that was causing a bit of consternation, that they weren't expecting Harry Kane to drop back and they didn't know who was picking him up. So maybe it could have been something like that. But what's your view on Douglas Luiz? I remember eyebrows were raised as he was being left out of the team earlier on in the season, but I don't think we're seeing the same player as we did post Christmas, as we have done maybe since the turn of the year. Do you agree with that, or do you have any feelings in that specifically?
Yeah, I feel. And I did say it in the preview that I thought the game was for Nakamba this week. I think I've been slightly justified in saying that now. Although you did question who was going to overrun us. They did overrun us in that area. I think what we've seen from Dean Smith team selection, that there has been games where he just thought that have been suited for Dougie or suited for Nakamba, and he switched it up that way. And that's why I had said that I felt that this game was more suited for Nakamba. So we don't know how training is going for Nakamba, if anything was happening or whatever. Don't get me wrong, I'm absolutely mad about Douglas Luiz. I don't envisage Man City are going to come looking for him at this stage. I think we're safe enough to hang on to him. So I'm happy enough with him, but there's still a little bit more work to do. He's come on leaps and bounds since last season, as we know. Is a completely new signing this year. But the last couple of games, I thought, it was, I think Nakamba would have done a better job last night. He just didn't seem to get into the game at all, especially with the when we didn't have the ball. I should say he just wasn't getting around the pitch the way I would have expected him to, and the way he has done all along.
Yeah, I agree. It's like we're not calling for anybody to be sold, or for us not to, or for us to get rid of anybody. No, we're looking for compliment for someone maybe to come in to compliment Douglas Luiz. Styles make fights. That's what I'm trying to get at here. And we look at what Mourinho has done. Even setting up his team there, brought in Rodden into the centre half position there yesterday, so that he could provide an extra bit of athleticism in there, alongside Toby Alderweireld. Reguilon was left back, and then I can't pronounce the guy who was right back, unfortunately.
Not Alderweireld, Sanchez. You said Toby Alderweireld. Sanchez played.
I did. Yeah, you're right. It was Sanchez
and Tangana right back.
Tangana then at right back. Yeah.
I was rubbing my hands and licking my lips when I saw the back four.
So was I. But in hindsight, they knew, right? Okay, if you're going to get the ball up here, you better have the horses to come charging. There better be a second wave coming here. But when there wasn't, it was very, very simple for him. What I'm getting at here is the Styles make fights, as I said. I said it in the Villa View last night as well, that we need a big destructive force, I think, to come in midfield at times, to kind of like a big-bodied midfielder, like a Papa Bouba Diop, God rest his soul. Somebody like that. Maybe somebody like what's his name, Anguissa at Fulham. Check Decore from Lens, Lens, whatever way you pronounce it. My French
just as you say that, you the one name that came into my head there was Declan Rice. I watched him yesterday, and he's just a beast of a man. Like, someone like that, I think we're missing in the midfield. And it probably would be, if you sign a player like that, it's probably not at Douglas Luiz's expense; it's at John McGinn's expense. But
I think if you are going to employ and I wasn't critical of this, because in the moment, for the first 30 minutes, I actually enjoyed watching McGinn here around the place and Sanson here around the place. I thought McGinn had more errors in his game during that period, but I could see they brought good energy in there for a team that was like devoid of creativity. They brought in good energy. We had Trezeguet as well, but when you go goal behind, it all means nothing. When we went that goal behind, because not only did we lose the energy, we resorted to just fouling in the middle of the midfield. Spurs do that. Spurs go down to drop of a hat, and look, sure, we saw it with the penalty, and we'll get onto that in a moment. But when that happened, we didn't like the reason I would like a big destructive force in there is that he would be able to take, if nothing else, that he would take up space, and that he would be hard to get around. Coming through the middle of midfield, and somebody like I'm thinking Patrick Vieira, that type.
Yeah.
We need to kind of get somebody, get a bit more grunt in midfield, because we're pretty small. When you go outside Tyrone Mings, we're pretty small as you go up the field, and I think that's something that maybe Dean Smith might look at, a bit more of a destructive force in there, to try and pin things down. Let's talk about the penalty, Paddy, because I could speak about that midfield three all day long and not make any sense and convince myself of 4 or 5 different scenarios. But let's talk about that penalty. I still haven't seen a conclusive replay of that penalty that actually leads me to believe that it was a penalty. I can see why it's given.
I'm not surprised it's given.
Yeah.
Number one, because it's Mike Dean. And in my opinion, Mike Dean should not be refereeing a Spurs Villa game after what he did whatever many years ago, celebrating the Spurs goal, regardless of whether he was congratulating and patting himself on the back for the decision he made in the lead up to it. His reaction would lead me to believe he's no place to be anywhere near the game.
Tell me that story.
He played an advantage, and Spurs scored, and he literally ran off like this, celebrating after the goal went in. Do you not remember that?
Was Mike Dean not in the stands going absolutely buck ape for supporting his football team? Was it Tranmere or something like that?
Tranmere, yeah. But
I remember that.
He actually physically did this after Spurs scored against us about maybe 10 years ago. But anyway, it's just I absolutely hate watching a match with him in charge, because he's the most arrogant man I've ever seen in my life. And the surprise you had chalk and cheese, and one wonders if Simon Hooper was on VAR, was afraid to overrule him. Simon Hooper being an up-and-coming referee, and I have great time for Simon Hooper because you can see he physically gets involved with players, he talks to them, he tells them why he's made a decision, whereas Mike Dean just stands there arrogant as hell, shuts his mouth and blows the whistle. And, you know, every referee has their quirks. For me, it wasn't a penalty. And, you know, there's a lot of people calling out Matt Cash for going to ground. If Matt Cash doesn't go to ground and Harry Kane pulls that ball across the goal and someone taps it in at the back post, Matt Cash is in trouble as well. He had to go to ground. Any good fullback would go to ground in that position. Harry Kane was in last chance saloon to get the ball across the goal. That's what Matt Cash had to do. But the cuteness, as Gary Neville put it, I call cuteness cheating.
Cheating, yeah. Grabbing your knee.
He knew that he had lost the ball and then shifted his body to put his leg in front of Matt Cash. That's exactly what he did. That's buying a penalty. And that's not the first time this season he's buying penalties. He's got himself in the edge of the box a few times and stuck his arse out and gone down like a ton of bricks and got penalties. It's an absolute disgrace. And I don't for 1 minute think if Trezeguet does that at the other end, he gets a penalty. I think the England captain going down like that, the first option, yeah, penalty. End of story. Maybe with Ollie Watkins now in the England squad, we might get some decisions like that against us
we'll see.
or for us. But
We'll see.
for me, it's definitely not a penalty. And at that stage, it was game over. It was hard enough to get back into it at 1-0. We were never getting back into it at 2-0.
No.
And don't get me wrong, there's been many neutral message me and say, no, I think it was a penalty. But that's just my opinion. That's how I see it.
Yeah, I understand why it was given. Look, you give the referee a decision to make there. He's got to make the decision when in Harry Kane's favour.
But
You know,
what I'm saying is, I don't think Matt Cash gave him the decision to make. I think Harry Kane gave him the decision to make.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree with that. Like, my biggest thing there is Matt Cash goes in. It wasn't a high tackle or anything like that. Harry Kane goes down holding his knee. You know,
it was disgraceful. It's disgraceful.
Things like that are like.
And the minute he pointed the spot, he jumped back up and get the ball to put it on the spot. Like
Dean Smith alluded to it as well, saying that maybe Matt Targett needs to fall down a bit more because he felt that he was fouled in the build-up as well, which I felt as well. I felt that Matt Targett was fouled. And he said Matt Targett needs to fall down a small bit more, and we get frees for stuff like that. I want to talk about Dean Smith. There's two pieces I want to talk about. First of all, Dean Smith. Remind me to come back to set pieces in a moment, or lack thereof. But Dean Smith's press conference, I was actually really happy with what he said. He called it like it was. You know, he basically said there's a couple of players that aren't playing really well. You know, he said that we're in a bad spot at the moment. We were confident that we can get back out of it. He said that the goals were silly goals. They were from individual mistakes. Like, he basically said everything we've said. You know, I think he gets it. He understands what the situation is that we're faced with at the moment. But I think that there's precious little that he can really do, other than maybe tweak the formation to go 4-4-2. He's already changed it from 4-2-3-1 to 4-3-3. It isn't working, yes, but he feels that we need to be a bit more stable. If we go to 4-4-2, we kind of, you know, that's going to knock our stability as well, I would imagine, because when we're struggling with 3 in midfield, if we go 2 in midfield, we become less, even more lightweight. What's your views on Smith? On Smith, and did you see the press conference he gave last night to Villa TV? And talk to me a bit on that and what you think, what kind of liability he has for.
I didn't see what he said to Villa TV, to be honest. I did see what he said to Sky after the match.
I didn't see that.
For me, I would always look at, you know, all the top managers. You look at Klopp, you look at Pep, you look at Alex Ferguson, and anybody you're talking about. They come into a club, they have their formation, they have their style of play they want to play. Dean Smith wants to play 4-2-3-1 when we have Jack, and 4-3-3 when we don't have Jack. And if you look at the under-23s and the under-18s, they're all playing the same system on the off chance that they need to step up. And you know that if it's a bad manager that's coming in that doesn't have that authority to do it across the board from youth level up.
Good point. Good point. Yeah.
So this is his philosophy. This is his footballing philosophy. If you don't like it, I'm sorry, you're stuck with it until Dean Smith moves on, because I don't envisage, unless we unearth a couple of players that the system would change to suit their play, I envisage that we will play 4-2-3-1 every time we have Jack, and 4-3-3 when we don't have him. That just seems to be the way he haven't. And I pat him on the back for it, because that's what good managers do. They do it from the bottom up. We saw it in the although we spent a lot of time camped in our box for the Liverpool FA Cup game. We've watched a couple of under-23 games in the last few weeks. Admittedly, some of them very hard to watch, but we watched them. And it doesn't look like they're going to get out of that second division this season. But look, they're playing football exactly the way, and a lot of them are still very young. They're playing football exactly the same way as our first team are playing it, and they have to be in a position to step up into the squad. If we got we got 3 or 4 injuries, we would be calling on those guys to come in and either sit on the bench or start. And maybe the time has come. Maybe the time now. I think I'm kind of resigned to the fact that we're going to finish mid-table. So maybe the time has come to see how good these guys are before we send them out on loan for a year next season. The likes of Philogene Badace, Carney Chukmawenka, these guys probably need to go out now and get
Louis Barry. You can't mention the 23s, so bring up Louis Barry.
No, I don't buy into the whole Louis Barry thing of getting him into the first team. I think he's still very raw. I think he's a little bit of growing up to do before we'll see him in the first team, and that could be 2 years down the line. So I would think that Louis Barry will stay in that underage system, definitely for another season, unless he starts to do something absolutely extraordinary and starts pulling up trees. I don't think we'll see him within the first team setup for another season.
I'm of the view that if you're bringing young fellas into the team, put them in the position where they can do the kicking, as opposed to the position where they're going to get kicked. And I think the further forward you go, the more likely you are to get kicked and roughhoused. The further back that you go, like Kane Hayden Kessler there will have perfect opportunity to leave something on a winger and balance the power in his favour if needs be with a crunching tackle or something like that. So look, that's just a complete aside. Look, I'm not saying that you don't start Philogene Bidace maybe in one of the upcoming games, or that Louis Barry doesn't get a run, but that would be my thinking. That's why you would see managers would be more likely maybe to bring in a player in the defence or the middle of midfield or something, somewhere like that. Like Jacob Ramsey, prime case in point. He's come in, he's gotten a few minutes, and we'll see where we go from there.
I looked at it last night because I was looking at fixtures where we could bring people in and blood them or whatever, and there's not an awful lot of them there.
You have a tough run.
I was looking at where we'd probably finish up. I reckon we'll get another 9 points on the board, and we'll finish around 50 points. And I think that's probably been realistic. I think we'll probably slip up against one of the lesser teams, and we'll probably turn over one of the bigger teams, because we haven't been prone to do that this season.
Paddy, if we finish on 50 points, I'm open to correction in this. I looked at it last night. I don't have the figures in front of me. If we finish on 50 points, it would be our 4th best. I think it's our 4th best Premier League point finish in almost 20 years.
Yeah.
And the other 3 are, guess what? Martin O'Neill years.
Yeah. You see, the reason people are disappointed with where we are at the moment, and the fact that we're only on 41 points, is that we had such a good start, and it was so promising. And then, we all seem to forget and gloss over the fact that, we had a huge setback in January with that COVID outbreak. We still don't know who other than Matty Targett and Trezeguet had it. We don't know if that's affecting the game of Douglas Luiz or Ross Barkley or anyone we've mentioned that's doesn't seem to be firing on all cylinders. And who knows, maybe it's affecting Jack, because it's just a big grey area about why he's not back in the team yet. But look, we've got 2 weeks off now. I envisage we'll see Jack play in that behind closed doors friendly they've set up for Wesley later on this week. And he'll get minutes under his belt, and hopefully he's back roaring for the Fulham game when we return. And after the Fulham game, we've got a couple of tough ones, so we're going to need him back. We're going to need the distraction of of the
That's it.
Liverpools and Man City's, working hard to counteract Jack, so we get a bit of time on the ball ourselves. So it's not going to be an easy run. I hope people appreciate that we've come a long way since last season, and they don't lose that fact, because it is a fact that if you told us, that we'd finish on 50 points, it was always going to be an improvement. It was 14 or 15 point improvement on last season, and we would have snapped your hand off for it. So it's going to be slow and steady. There will, to push on to the next level, there will be, as we discussed, a couple of marquee signings will need to come in, or Johan Lange will have to unearth the next Scandinavian superstar to come in and do a job for us. And who knows what that is? I'm sure there's a plan. I'm sure they've already earmarked guys to come and work with us. And it'll be a question of when the transfer window opens that we look at getting them in. But for now, what we have to look forward to is the return of Jack, the return of Wesley, and see how strong he is and how he's going to be with such a good team around him. Will we create more chances for him? Will we see Ollie Watkins playing off the right to accommodate him? There's a load to look forward to. There really is. And I wasn't in this positive state last night, so I'm glad we actually left this to record till today, because I just felt like someone just stuck a pin in me. I was just so deflated last night. And that was just that I felt from the early stages that they were there for the taking. We haven't beaten Spurs in ages, as you know, where I live in Limerick, it's full of Spurs fans, because Spurs played a friendly here in the 80s or a European game or something in the 80s. So it's full of Spurs fans, and just to listen to the dross, it's bad enough you have to watch them playing so poorly without having to listen to them saying how great they are. So look, I think we just have to draw a line under it and hope that things are going to improve. I envisage there'll be a few days off this week to get some R&R. They're probably in just getting their recovery sessions today, and I'd imagine they get a few days off because it's badly needed. There's a lot of players there that will be quite leggy, and it'll be a good thing that some of them aren't going on international duty that would ordinarily go. So I hope they take their time to rest up. It's not like they can do anything with their time off, so be at home with their girlfriends, wives, or family, or whatever, and just relax and enjoy it, and go again then in 2 weeks' time.
There isn't really much more else to say on the game. I'm glad that we waited until we'd have to head to cool down afterwards, because I was pacing the house after doing the Villa View last night. I was pacing the house and I was kind of going, Jesus, I was a bit annoyed over it. But look, worse things happen at sea, I suppose, isn't that what that's what the saying is?
I think the fact that we're in a lockdown, and the only thing we have to look forward to is this, and I think that just intensifies the bad feeling after a game.
100%.
So, yeah, and I think it's the same for everybody. I know you messaged me last night about Twitter. I didn't even read what people are saying. I always allow that after a performance like that. I always allow that simmer down before I'd have a look, and then I have my go-to guys that I'd go and have a look at and see what they had to say. But there's absolutely no point in recording straight after a game and absolutely tearing into them, which is what I would have done last night. So I think we'll be fine. We've come a long way. You just take this break now for what it is, as much as I'm not looking forward to dross international football for the next 2 weeks, but we are where we are. Exactly. Sorry, you asked me to remind you about set pieces.
Yeah, I did. I was just going to go on a rant about how we do absolutely nothing from them, and we must be one of the worst teams in the league with set pieces.
But I figured that's what you were going to say.
And I was just going to reiterate the point that I'm still waiting. If we score directly from a corner, what I mean by corner is whipped in, ball is headed, or someone gets something on it and it goes in from a corner, I will sing on this podcast. Now, I've been learning songs, in anticipation for it. But I think I'm fairly safe on that level for the next few weeks anyway.
I think 3 or 4 different people took corners last night.
Yeah.
Some of them failed to beat the first man each time. Are you telling me we couldn't shoehorn Conor Horan into that setup last night? Are you telling me he would have done any better or worse than Sanson or McGinn? That's just my opinion. If I was picking the team, don't get me wrong, I might seem biased, being an Irishman, but Connor is just invaluable to us with his delivery from set pieces all across the attacking part of the park. He can deliver from corners. He can deliver from free kicks. That ball I was talking about, getting in behind the back four and running onto.
Yeah,
that's the kind of ball that we're crying out for, and Connor is the man to deal with it. And we might see him back in the summer. We might see him back around the team. I don't know if Swansea are gonna. I know he's picked up an injury now as well, so he'll be out for a couple of weeks. I don't know if Swansea even have the finances to go and do a deal like that if they don't get promoted. And it's not set in stone that they will get promoted either, although there's a good chance. But I would fight tooth and nail with anybody who tells me that he couldn't have done the job that Sanson or McGinn did last night.
Yeah.
Would you agree?
I would, yeah. But I don't have the time. Or sorry, I do have the time. I don't have the energy to get into that on this podcast. But it's definitely something more for another podcast that further down the line. I think that really pretty much does it, Paddy. I think that's going to wrap it up for this evening. Laker Sportsman a match. Gosh.
Target or Konza for me.
Well done, Ezri Konza. You're turning into the new Emmy Martinez. You're going again. You're the easy option to just pick. Yeah, there we go. Ezri Konza, Laker Sportsman a match. Your check is in the post. Thanks everybody for listening. I really, really appreciate it. If you're listening to the podcast or watching this on YouTube, really, really thank you so much from the bottom of my heart from that. Even if you don't watch us on YouTube, we really would appreciate a little subscription. Just pop in there, even subscribe on YouTube, just to get us out there. That would be really, really appreciated. Thank you so much, as I say, for everything you do for this podcast. It's really, really appreciated. Thanks a million, Paddy, for popping on. And you can find Paddy on @VillaPaddy. You can find me on @LoveMcGrathPod. We'll be back. I'm going to do one or two little pieces. I'm sure, Paddy, we won't be able to stay away and not talk about Aston Villa over the next 2 weeks, but we'll probably be back maybe next week. I might give it a couple of days of rest and recuperation from the podcasting scene for a moment, but might come back and maybe do something on transfers or something. I don't know. We'll have a look and we'll have a chat. But yeah, as I say, disappointing loss against Spurs. 2-week break. Hopefully we get Jack Grealish back and hopefully we start to roar again. But until the next time, all that's really left to say is up the Villa.
Up the Villa.